It's me again. Chapter 13. Mom and Daddy have a fight about it, but Grandpa T finally speaks up and says I'm old enough to walk all the way to church by myself. Mama's muttering about maybe Buddy can walk with me, and I say no, it's too far for him, and she wraps her hands up in her apron and hollers at Grandpa T to turn down the TV before he wakes up the baby. And then she says somebody's got to cook some supper and stomps off to the kitchen. And Daddy and Grandpa T look at me and say, "What are you waiting for?" And out the door I go. I'm halfway out the gate before I realize I ain't explained to Buddy. I find him laying in the shade of the pecan tree. I start rubbing his head. "I can't take you with me to the church, Buddy," I say to him. "You'd be worn out if you walked that far. I'd be carrying you home, and I ain't strong enough to do that." He looks up at me, and I'm thinking maybe I can make him a leg, like those pirates on TV. Maybe I can fix up a stick or something and hook it to the piece of leg still hanging in the back. But now I got to go mow. Buddy's laying there thumping his tail at me, and Tanya walks out the back door. She comes creeping over and squats down by Buddy. "I'll look after him while you're gone," she says. "He'll be fine," I say. "He don't need you." She twists up her mouth and cocks her head to one side. "Meanie," she says. I ball up my fist and shake it at her. "Meanie yourself. You leave my dog alone." She stands up and goes prancing back to the house. "You watch out for her," I say to Buddy. "She's a girl." Brother James is waiting at the church when I get there. He gives me the key to the shed and back, and sure enough, there's a lawnmower in there. I get it going, and I start mowing. That grass is as high as my knees in places. It chokes up the mower over and over. I'm thanking the Lord it's a tiny little lawn when Brother James comes out and says, "Next I've got to rake up all the grass and stick it in trash bags and then pile it in behind the church." I'm thinking, this is a $20 job, not no $5 mow and go. When I'm done, Brother James comes out and looks it over. He says I did a good job. He says I can come back next Saturday, like that's something I might want to do. Then he hands me a $5 bill and says, "See you in the morning, son." I stuff that $5 bill in my pocket and I walk home thinking the last thing I'm going to do next Saturday evening is mow that church lawn. I'm thinking about how hot I am and how thirsty I am and how I wish I had a cold drink. I'm thinking about when I grow up I'm going to live where there's snow in the winter time and frozen up lakes where you can go skating. I'm going to live where the leaves get red and orange in the fall and they got apples on the trees. I'm thinking I'll be taking Buddy with me on that trip. I'm thinking with all that hot fur he'll be glad to go where it's cold. I head straight for the back to ask Buddy what he thinks, and when I round the corner of the house, I stop in my tracks. I can't believe my eyes. Tanya's sitting there with Buddy. She's got a great big ribbon tied around his neck in a big old bow. She's got one of those ballerina skirts going around his stomach. She's holding on to one of his 4 feet and singing how they got to go dance the night away. I start yelling. Tanya jumps up and starts screaming. Buddy stands up on his 3 legs and starts barking. Mama comes running out the back door and starts hollering. Grandpa T comes right behind her saying, "What the blue blazes?" "Get away," I'm yelling. "He's my dog. Get away." I'm pulling at Tanya and she's beating on my hands to make me turn her loose. I'm dragging her away and Mama comes running up and she says, "Have you lost your mind?" And I yell, "Look what she's done." "Turn her loose," Mama hollers. I drop Tanya's arm and she goes running into the house. I hear her crying inside like somebody's hurt her or something. Then Daddy comes busting out of the house carrying the baby. He don't say nothing. He hands the baby to Mama. Go on back to the house, he says to her. See about Tanya. Mama's talking to herself all the way back to the door. She lets it bang shut behind her. Grandpa T's standing there looking at Buddy. Buddy's mouth is hanging open and his tongue's hanging out, and he's panting in the heat, and his caterpillar eyebrow is all cocked up to one side, and some people might say he's laughing. But I know it ain't so. That dog's got the patience of Job, Grandpa T says. Tanya did it, I say. She made him look like a fool. Did you hear him barking like that? He can't stand it. Grandpa T squats down and unties the bow. He rubs Buddy around the ears. You're the ugliest, stupidest dog I've ever seen, he says. And Buddy's tail goes thump, thump. If J-Boy had seen that, I say, he'd fall out laughing. He'd say... Then I realize Daddy's holding me by the arm. He ain't talking. I look up at him. His face is hard. Grandpa T slides that skirt off Buddy and laughs. That's a good costume for Mardi Gras, Buddy, he says. We got to remember it. Little T, did I ever tell you this story about... Then he looks at Daddy, standing there holding me by the arm. I'll go on back inside now, Grandpa T says, and leaves out carrying the clothes. Then it's just me and Buddy and Daddy standing by the shed. Buddy lays down and gets awful quiet. Did you see your sister's arm? Daddy says. She's going to get approved. I don't say anything. What do you think I ought to do, son? I shrug. He shakes my arm. You ain't listening. Yes, I am. You hurt your sister. What do you think I ought to do? Don't know. Daddy's real quiet for a minute. You want to keep that dog, son? Daddy says, and all of a sudden I feel something cold running in my stomach. Yes, sir, I say real quiet. In this family, he says, we share. I nod. We ain't got much, he says, but what we got, we share. Yes, sir. Are you going to share from now on? Yes, sir. Go get the stick. I know where the stick is. It's leaning up behind the shed. I go and get it. Daddy holds it a minute. You 'bout to be too big for this, he says. But I expect I won't be needing it much longer. No, sir, I say. He walks in the shed and I follow him. I lean over. He whaps me 3 times. Then he leaves out. Buddy comes nosing in. While I'm rubbing my behind, he's whining and poking at my hand. Finally, he lays down on his blanket, and I lay down beside him. You're my dog, I say. He lifts up his head and licks my face clean. And that's the end of chapter 13. Chapter 14. I mow the church lawn again the next Saturday evening. Daddy says I have to. So I do. Brother James gives me another $5, even though it don't take even half as long. I stop by the store on my way back. When I get home, Tanya's sitting there singing to Buddy. She promised she won't dress him up any more, and I've said she can sit and sing to him when I leave out. I'm back now, I say. I ain't finished my song. I sit down to wait. Tanya's got a pretty voice. I ain't going to say it out loud, but it's for true. Except she don't know any songs. She just makes it up as she goes along. You're a beautiful dog, she's singing to Buddy. You got great big eyes, you got pretty black fur. Your tongue hangs out between your teeth when you're hot. You go woof woof when little T comes back. You look at me when I sing. You put your head down on your feet. Your ears go. She stops. She tilts her head to one side and looks at Buddy. Then she starts up again. I don't know any words for what your ears do. They can stand up on their own. They're pink inside. That's enough, I say. This song ain't never going to end. She hunches up like she's afraid I'm going to hit her. Can't you sing something else, something that's got an end? The Eensy Weensy Spider, she says. Okay, that's short. I wait all the way through. I see her drawing a breath to start over. You're finished. Now go. She hops up and runs inside, and Buddy turns his eyes to me. I reach in the bag I brought from the store. It's a present, I say to Buddy. He lifts up his head and looks. Dog biscuits, I say. I open the box and take one out. I hand it to him. He crunches it between his teeth. He drops it. He picks it up. He's slobbering all over that biscuit until it's completely gone. I laugh. Was that good? He looks up at me. He's staring at me and panting. I know he wants another one, so I throw him another one. He loves those biscuits. I'm thinking, what do I want with a bicycle? I'm getting more biscuits next week. And I throw him another one. I start getting biscuits for Buddy every week on my way home from mowing the churchyard. I go with Mama when she's making groceries. And I get him his regular food plus a rubber bone that squeaks when he bites it. First time he bites it, he jumps. Then he bites it again and shakes it. Me and Tanya are laughing at him. He thinks he's putting on a show. One day I walk all the way to the pet store on St. Claude and Frenchman Street. They got birds in cages and rats and kittens and mice and everything. We got a whole wall of fish swimming around plastic plants. They got shelves stacked all the way to the ceiling with toys and food. What are you looking for, son? The man says. I got a dog, I say. What's he need? Almost everything. He got a collar? I shake my head. He needs a collar. The man walks to a whole rack of collars. Is he a big dog or a little dog? Medium. He lifts up a red leather collar. Is this one long enough? He wraps it around in a circle, and I think about Buddy and whether it would fit around his neck. Yes, sir, I say. You got a tag? A tag? You need a tag. You need to put his name on it and your phone number so if he runs off, they can find you. But he can't run. He's only got 3 legs. He's named Buddy. I got a tag with that name already on it. He shows me a whole display of name tags. Sure enough, there's one that says Buddy. It's silver with the letters already scratched into it. I'll take it, I say, and I hand him the money. When I put it on Buddy, he stands up straight like he thinks he's really somebody's dog now. You the man, I say to Buddy. Ruff, Buddy says. And I think that means you too, little T. And that's the end of chapter 14. By the end of July, I'm about worn out with mowing yards. Some people don't call me anymore. Some people call me twice a week. J-Boy's mama calls me once and I mow the yard, but then she says she don't have the $5 and she'll send J-Boy with it tomorrow. He don't never come. Daddy says I got to just write that one off and I don't have to go back if she calls again, which she don't. Miss Washington wants me to come inside every time I go. She gives me a cold drink and we read a letter. Might be a new one, might be an old one. She don't care. She just picks up one lying in the pile and hands it to me. She's starting to feel happy 'cause her nephew says he's coming home soon. I'm getting tired of pushing the lawnmower around and around the yards. I'm getting tired of watching cartoons on the TV. I'm getting tired of hearing Tanya singing. Mama's always telling me to sit up straight at the table. Daddy's always telling me to chew with my mouth closed. Grandpa T's saying how did I get such big feet? Tanya's saying, why do I take up the whole sofa when we're trying to watch TV? Buddy don't say anything. Buddy lays beside me under the tree. I scratch behind his ears. I throw him the ball a time or two. He listens to my stories. When I go inside, I smell him on my hands, and I don't want to wash it off. The days are slipping by, and I feel like I'm half asleep most of the time. Then the next time I go to mow at the church, I can't hardly believe my eyes. Brother James rolls out a brand new lawnmower with a bag on the bag. He shows me how to unhook the bag and dump the cut-off grass in these special new trash bags he bought. That mower whips around that churchyard so fast, I feel like it's pulling me instead of me pushing it. I fill up those trash bags before you know it. I set them behind the church for trash day and get home with a box of Buddy treats before I feel like I'm hardly gone. Grandpa T, I say at dinner that night, you got to go get one of those new lawnmowers. Ask Brother James how much it costs. Don't matter how much it costs, Grandpa T says. I ain't spending money on a lawnmower when I got you to do the job. Maybe I'll buy it, I say. Maybe I'll save up my money next summer and get a fancy lawnmower and can't nobody use it but me. You have to share, Tanya says. Daddy said so. You want to mow the lawn, I say. She gets all quiet. You can mow the lawn if you want to, I say. Stop it, Mama says. Now you're teasing her. I swear the tip of Tanya's tongue is sticking out at me. Mama, I say and start to point. Your feet are in my way again, Grandpa T says. I put down my hand. I move my feet. We all just keep on eating. Next Saturday, I decide to try an experiment. I decide to let Buddy come with me all the way to the church. We go slow. He takes a long time sniffing at the tree trunks and barking at the squirrels. Once he starts to take off after one, but I holler, stay! And he stops just like that and comes limping back and plops himself right down beside me. Good dog, I say, and rub up around his ears. Who taught you that, Buddy? Where are you from? Buddy don't say nothing. He just sits there panting in my face, and then he takes a little lick, and I laugh, and off we go again. It takes us about 3 times as long to get to the church, but I figure it's worth it. I got somebody to talk to while I do my work. I drag open the shed door and show off that brand new lawnmower to Buddy. He sniffs its wheels and checks out the bag on the back. While I gas it up, he's poking it with his nose and almost tripping me when I go to put the can away. Then I lay my hand on the cord, and he hops to the back of the shed and sits down and waits. his tongue hanging out of his mouth, and his ears stretching up to listen. "Roof," he goes when the motor starts. "Roof, roof, roof." But he don't move. He just sits there and barks and waits. I roll that lawnmower out and I start my circles. After a minute, Buddy peeps out of the shed to watch. When I head to the front, Buddy edges around the corner and sits himself down on the church steps, just like he does when we're going house to house. Every time I come close, he lifts up his head and looks at the mower and gives a little woof, like he's saying, "Good job, little T, thank you for my food." When I'm all done, I go in the back to get those special bags. Brother James bought a wire rack you hook the bags on to hold it open. I'm searching all through that shed and can't find it. I'm saying, "Where did I put that rack last Saturday?" And then I see it, stuck up in the corner and almost invisible in the dark. I grab the rack and the bags, and then I hear Buddy start barking. Buddy's barking up a storm. He's barking like that churchyard's full of squirrels. He's barking like he's going to tear out every one of their throats twice over. He ain't drawing a breath. He's just barking and barking. I throw down the stuff and I tear around the church to the front, and I see why. Buddy's standing up on his 3 legs on the church porch, tied to the post with an old piece of rope, and 2 boys are pushing that lawnmower down the street. "Hey, you!" I yell. "Hey, you!" They turn around and I see one of them is J-Boy. "Where are you going with that lawnmower?" I yell. They turn back around and keep on pushing. I start running after them. "J-Boy!" I'm yelling. "J-Boy, what are you doing with that lawnmower?" But he's barking and barking and pulling at that rope. I'm about to catch up to them. "Leave that lawnmower alone," I'm yelling. "That's the church's lawnmower." Buddy's voice is practically going hoarse with barking. And then I'm there, and I shove J-Boy off to one side, and he falls down. And that other boy takes off down the street, and J-Boy's laying there on the sidewalk with his forehead bleeding. Then he looks up at me and says things I can't write down. "Go home," I say, and watch him get up. Buddy's still barking on the church porch. "Be quiet, Buddy," I say. Buddy stops barking and stands there looking at us like we're just a little bit too far away to suit him. "I should have shot that dog," J-Boy says. He grabs hold of something under his shirt. "I got a gun," he says. Then he turns around and walks off down the street. He holds up his hand just before he turns the corner, and I know he ain't giving me no goodbye wave. Daddy shakes his head when I tell him about J-Boy. Mama says she doesn't care if he's the last person on earth. I'm not going to pass the time with him anymore. I'm not sitting next to him at school. I'm not sitting next to him on the bus. I'm not nodding to him on the street. He's not welcome in our home. If she catches me looking his way, she's going to beat the living daylights out of me because he's bad people. Grandpa T says J-Boy can't help it with his mama like she is. Mama says that's one thing, but her boy being friends with him is another thing, and she is not going to have it. Her boy is going to stay off the streets. He's going to graduate from school. He's going on to college if he can. He's not going to run with the drugs and the guns and end up... And then she starts crying, and Daddy says, "It's all right now. Little T's going to be just fine." And then I say, I can't stand J-Boy anyway, and why would I want to run with him? And ain't it about time for baby Terrell to go to bed? And she wipes her face and says, if I'm so worried about him getting to bed on time, maybe I ought to clean up the kitchen so she can put him down. And I say, okay, I'll do it. And finally, everything's quiet. I clean up, and then I go out and sit next to Buddy in the dark of the shed. He snugs up next to me. I bury my fingers in the fur behind his ears, and I tickle the ends of that caterpillar eyebrow. We sit still, leaning all to we sit still, listening to all the whispering nighttime sounds. A pecan dropping on the shed roof. Somebody playing a radio down the street. Some lady calling her kids. The air conditioner kicking on. Something rustling in the pile of paint cans stacked up in the corner. When a car rolls by, we can feel the bass beating in the wood walls around us. I hear Buddy breathing. I feel his soft fur and the muscles growing stronger and stronger under his skin. I hold my hand up to my face and I smell his smell and I think, it's okay, Mama. It's all going to be just fine. And that's the end of chapter 15. Chapter 16. I can't believe it. When I look around, it's time for school to start up. Mama's going through all my school clothes and fussing about how they don't fit and what are we going to do. Daddy says we forgot about the glasses I'm supposed to get, and I promise to sit on the front row. Tanya's sitting around with her thumb in her mouth because she's starting kindergarten for the first time and she's scared. It'll be okay, I tell her, just don't sing unless everybody else does. Daddy takes me aside the last Saturday of the summer and he says, how much you got saved, son? I say, I've been spending my money on Buddy. You ain't spent it all on that dog, have you? I've got $50, I say. Daddy nods his head real slow. That ain't much, he says. I know, but it might be just enough if I pitch you in half, he says. Then he smiles. Come on, let's go shopping. I can't believe it. Daddy takes me to the second-hand store down on Esplanade, and the lady there says she's got a whole stack of bikes in the back. We go back there and they've got red ones and blue ones and purple ones and orange ones. Daddy makes me ride them around to try them out. Which one fits you best, he asks, and I say, the red one. We push it up to the front and the lady says, that'll be $80 on the nose. Daddy slides 2 20s on the counter, and so do I. She starts counting it out, and Daddy says, you're sure that bike is exactly $80? He's been mowing lawns all summer to get that money. The lady looks at me. What section did you take that bike out of? She says. The very end, I say. Why didn't you say so to start? She says. That's the sales section. Those bikes are only $60. And then she gives me back a 20. We're putting that bike in the car, and Daddy's tee-heeing, and I'm grinning so big I think my face is going to split open. Sales section, Daddy says. What do you think about that? When we get home, all you know what's broke loose. Okay, let me reread that, okay? When we get home, all you know what's broke loose. Baby Terrell's bawling and he's bleeding. Mama's screaming, Tanya's crying, and Grandpa T's yelling. Daddy jumps out of the car. He goes running up the steps. That dog! Mama's screaming. She's holding Baby Terrell, and look at where he's bleeding on his forehead, on his foot. That dog! She screams again. What about the dog? Daddy says. He bit the baby, Grandpa T says. I stop right where I am, pushing my new bike through the gate. Buddy bit Baby Terrell, I say. Sorry, son, Grandpa T says. We can't have that. What do you mean? I drop the bike and run back to the shed. The door's shut and somebody's nailed Buddy's signboard across it. I hear Buddy inside whimpering and crying. Buddy, I say through the door, What happened? What happened, boy? Then Daddy's calling from the house. Come in here, little T, he's saying. I go inside. Mama's washing baby Terrell off in the sink. He's covered in dirt and blood. She's hugging him up every once in a while and kissing the top of his head. What happened? I asked again. The dog bit the baby, Daddy says. He's out of here, Mama says. He's gone tonight. I don't care where you take that dog. I don't care what you do with him. Shoot him. You hear what I'm saying? Get the gun out from under the mattress and shoot his brains out. Daddy puts his hand on Mama's arm. Take it easy now, he says. I say shoot him, she says again. And I see she's got big old tears running down her cheeks. She's got dirt and blood smeared all across her apron. Tanya's sitting on the floor in the corner, crying and sticking her thumb in her mouth. She's got on one of Mama's aprons and red shoes with glitter all over them. Just shoot him, Mama's saying over and over. Then all of a sudden, Tanya stands up and yells like she's in a whole different room. But it ain't his fault. Everybody stops. Everybody looks at Tanya. What are you saying? Grandpa T says. Tanya flops back down on the floor and sticks her thumb in her mouth and cries so hard her whole body's jerking around. What are you saying, baby girl? Daddy says. She takes her thumb out and looks up at Daddy and says, You can't shoot him. You can't shoot Buddy. He bit the baby. Baby Terrell was about to stick his hand in a rat's nest. Tanya yells with her eyes all squinched up. And Buddy stopped him. Mama spins around like she's on the dance floor. Water goes flying across the kitchen. What did you say? We were playing with Buddy in the shed. Tanya's talking as fast as she can. I was singing and baby Terrell was making a pie with the dirt. I gave him Buddy's bowl and he started spooning dirt into it. Buddy came over to see what was happening with his bowl. Baby Terrell took his spoon and whopped Buddy on the head. Buddy went out and slid back away. Baby Terrell laughed and crawled after Buddy and whopped him again, and Buddy said, "Help!" again and stood up and headed toward the door. Tanya stops long enough to suck in 3 big breaths. Then she starts up again. Baby Terrell went crawling across the floor toward Buddy. He was crawling past the paint cans. He saw something and he stopped and he crawled over and started to climb up. He was reaching and then Buddy came barking back into the shed. He grabbed Baby Terrell's foot and he pulled him off the cans, and Baby Terrell fell and hit his head and he started screaming, and she just stops and her eyes squinched up. There's a rat's nest out there, Daddy says to me. I heard something, I say. I saw them, Tanya says, her eyes pop open. When Baby Terrell fell, he knocked the paint cans down and 2 big old rats went racing across the floor right in front of me and under the wall. And Buddy was limping after them and barking up a storm, and Baby Terrell was bleeding, and then Tanya starts crying again and shaking and laying on the floor. Those red shoes are falling off her feet. Mama looks at Tanya. Daddy looks at Mama. Grandpa T looks at Daddy. Why didn't you tell me Dad to stop? Mama says. Tanya don't answer. She curls up in a ball and starts hiccuping. Why were you just yelling, he bit the baby? He bit the baby. Baby Terrell's sitting in the sink splashing in the water. Grandpa T walks over and takes him out. He needs a diaper, Mama says. I reckon I know that, Grandpa T says, and walks out carrying the baby, talking in his ear. Baby Terrell starts laughing. Mama looks at Daddy. Then she looks at me. I changed my mind, she says. Don't shoot him. Then she rips off her apron, stomps up the stairs, and slams the door to her room. Tanya sits up. She's hiccuping so hard she can't hardly slip her shoes back on. "What were you doing all that time?" Daddy says. "Singing?" Tanya covers her face with her hands. "You were just watching and making up a song about what you were seeing, weren't you?" Tanya presses her fingers against her eyes. "And when it didn't work out, you blamed Buddy?" Daddy says. Tanya almost nods. "That ain't right," Daddy says. "Don't hit her with the stick," I say. "She's too little." Daddy looks at me a second, then he says, "I guess I'll go take that board off the door. Ain't no use in keeping him pinned up. We'll get the rats tomorrow." When he leaves out, I sit down beside Tanya on the kitchen floor. "I'm glad you told the truth," I say. "We're listening to Daddy's hammer prying off that old board and Buddy barking and barking. Tanya sniffing and rubbing her nose like she wants to rub it off. "You want to see my new bike?" I say. "Can I ride it?" "You ain't big enough," I say. She follows me out to the front yard, and I pick up the bike where I dropped it. We're standing there looking at the red bike when Buddy comes limping around from the back. He comes up and sniffs me and pokes his nose in my hand. Then he goes off to sniff Tanya. "I'm sorry, Buddy," she says. "I know you're a little teased dog, but I love you too." He bends down and licks those red shoes on her feet, and all of a sudden, I'm wondering if Buddy loves her back. And that's the end of chapter 16. I think I'm going to stop right here, and I'll do 17 and 18 in a little bit. Until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May he make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and grant you peace. See you later.